My name is Connor Beckett. I'm 35 years old, and I used to think loyalty ran in families. I was wrong. Dead wrong. What I'm about to tell you happened between early 2021 and late 2022, but it feels like a lifetime. It's a story about trust, betrayal, and how sometimes the coldest revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their own actions. I work in commercial real estate development, which means I travel constantly. Phoenix one week, Denver the next, sometimes gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. It's demanding work, but it pays well. Very well. My wife Marissa always made it clear that financial stability was her top priority. I didn't grow up with money, Connor, she'd say whenever I mentioned maybe scaling back the travel. I never want our kids to worry about bills like I did. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. So I kept traveling, kept building our financial foundation. We had 2 beautiful children, Mason, who was 3 at the time this story begins in early 2021, and Lily, who had just turned 1. They were my world, the reason I pushed through those lonely hotel nights in places like Omaha and Salt Lake City. Every dollar I earned was for them, for their college funds, for the house in suburban Littleton with the good school district. My brother Logan was the opposite of everything I stood for. 29 years old and never held a job longer than 8 months. Charming as hell, I'll give him that. He could talk his way into anything and out of any responsibility. While I was grinding 12-hour days to close deals, Logan was usually between opportunities, as he liked to put it. But he had this way of showing up at just the right moments. Hey, let me help out while Connor's gone, he'd tell Marissa. I can fix that leaky faucet, or I'll watch the kids so you can get some rest. I actually appreciated it. Thought it showed he was finally growing up, taking some family responsibility. I'd send him $100 here and there as a thank you. Thanks for looking out for my family, bro. I'd text him from whatever airport I was stuck in. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. Marissa started mentioning Logan's visits more often. Your brother stopped by again today. He's so good with the kids. Then it became routine. Every time I called home during my trips, Logan seemed to be there, helping with dinner, watching movies with the family, being the husband and father I couldn't be because I was busy earning the money that kept our lifestyle afloat. The irony wasn't lost on me even then. I was working myself to the bone to provide for my family, while my unemployed brother got to enjoy all the benefits of that family time I was sacrificing. But I pushed those thoughts down. Family helps family, right? That's what I told myself during those long, lonely nights in hotel rooms across America. Everything changed on a Wednesday in February 2021. I was in Seattle, closing a deal on a mixed-use development project, when my phone buzzed with an unusual notification. Our baby monitor system, one of those high-tech Wi-Fi cameras that records to the cloud, had detected motion after 11 p.m. That was odd. The kids should have been asleep for hours. Curious, I opened the app to check what had triggered the alert. What I saw made my blood run cold. The baby monitor's cloud storage showed a live feed from Mason's room camera. The timestamp read 11:23 p.m. Logan's pickup truck was pulling into our driveway. I watched in real time as he used his key, the one I'd given him for emergencies, to let himself into our house. The camera angle from Mason's room showed him walking down the hallway toward the master bedroom. My bedroom. I immediately checked the other cameras in our system. We had 3 total, 1 in each kid's room and 1 in the living room. The living room camera caught Logan passing by, but then the feed went dark. Someone had disabled it. But they'd forgotten about the kids' room cameras, which kept recording everything, including audio. Over the next hour, I heard sounds that made my hands shake as I held the phone. Voices, laughter, then unmistakable sounds from the master bedroom that confirmed what I already suspected, but didn't want to believe. I spent the rest of that night going through our cloud storage history. The baby monitor system kept recordings for 30 days, and it was all there. A pattern that had been building since January 2021. Logan arriving after the kids were asleep. staying until early morning, the living room camera being disabled each time, but the hallway movements and audio from the children's rooms telling the whole story. What made it worse was what I discovered about the timing. Logan wasn't just coming over randomly. He was deliberately arriving when the children might wake up and see him. On 3 separate occasions, I found audio of Mason asking, "Uncle Logan, why are you here so early?" and Logan making up stories about helping mommy with grown-up stuff. My 3-year-old son was being exposed to this deception, being taught to lie and keep secrets. The timestamps were damning. February 15th, 18th, 21st, 25th. Every single time I was out of town on business, Logan was there. Not helping with the kids, not fixing anything around the house. He was sleeping with my wife in the bed I paid for, in the house I was killing myself to afford, and involving my children in the cover-up. I could have called them right then. Could have screamed, threatened, demanded explanations. Instead, I closed the laptop and went to the hotel bar, ordered a double bourbon and thought about my next move, because this wasn't just about catching them. This was about protecting my children and making sure that when the dust settled, I'd be in the best position to take care of them. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. Called Marissa during my usual time. "How are the kids? Everything going okay?" "Oh, you know, the usual chaos," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Logan stopped by yesterday to help with Mason's bedtime story. Such a lifesaver." "That's great," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Tell him I said thanks." But I was already downloading every recording to a secure external drive. Screenshots, video files, audio clips. Everything time-stamped and organized by date. My real estate background had taught me the value of thorough documentation. In business, you never make a move without ironclad proof. This situation would be no different. I finished the Seattle deal and told Marissa I'd be extending my trip through the weekend for additional client meetings. Instead, I flew back to Denver and spent those 3 days consulting with a divorce attorney. Patricia Walsh had handled several high-profile custody cases and came highly recommended by a colleague who'd gone through a messy divorce. "The good news is Colorado is a no-fault divorce state," Patricia explained as we reviewed the evidence on my laptop. "Infidelity alone won't necessarily impact custody, but this is different. You have evidence that your children are being exposed to deceptive behavior, that they're being coached to lie and keep secrets. That's parental alienation and harmful to their psychological development." She paused the recording where Mason's small voice could be heard asking why Uncle Logan was there so early, and Logan's response about helping mommy with special projects that needed to be our little secret. "This changes everything, Connor. The court's primary concern is the best interests of the children. A parent who involves children in covering up infidelity, who teaches them to lie and keep secrets about adult matters, that demonstrates extremely poor judgment that directly affects the children's well-being. We discussed strategy for 2 hours. The key was timing and presentation. Rush into a confrontation, and Marissa might claim it was a recent mistake, a moment of weakness. But with weeks of documented evidence showing a clear pattern of involving the children in deceptive behavior, the narrative would be much stronger. "My advice, don't tip your hand yet," Patricia said. "Let them think they're getting away with it. Meanwhile, we'll prepare everything quietly. Document a few more instances to establish the pattern beyond any doubt. When you're ready to file, we'll have an airtight case for primary custody based on protecting the children from psychological harm." I drove home that Sunday evening and hugged both my kids like I hadn't seen them in months. Mason showed me a new puzzle he'd completed while I was gone. Lily had learned to walk more steadily and was babbling new words every day. These were the moments I'd been missing while I worked to provide for them. And Logan had been here stealing them while he betrayed me and corrupted their understanding of truth and loyalty. "How was your trip, honey?" Marissa asked, kissing my cheek like she'd done 1,000 times before. "Very productive," I said. "Learned a lot about what really matters." Over the next 21 months, I maintained the routine while building my case. Traveled for work, called home at the usual times, acted like the devoted husband and brother I'd always been. But I was documenting everything. Every lie, every cover story, every time Logan's truck appeared in our driveway after bedtime. And most importantly, every instance where my children were being exposed to or asked to participate in the deception. The pattern never changed, but it got worse. February 2021 became March, then April, May, June. Each month brought new recordings, new evidence, new proof of their ongoing betrayal. By November 2022, I had documented over 50 separate instances of Logan coming to our house while I was traveling, always late at night, always staying until dawn. More concerning, I had over a dozen recordings of my children being asked to keep secrets, being told lies about why Uncle Logan was there so often, being gradually drawn into a web of deception that was poisoning their young minds. The breaking point came in early November 2022. I was supposed to be in Phoenix for a week-long project, but the client postponed our meetings. Instead of coming home early to surprise my family, I sat in my rental car at the end of our street and watched Logan's truck pull into our driveway at 10:45 p.m. He walked into our house like he owned it. That's when I decided it was time for Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving had always been our tradition. Every year since we got married, Marissa and I hosted both sides of the family at our house in Littleton. The dining room would be packed with aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents. Mom would bring her famous green bean casserole. Dad would carve the turkey and tell the same stories about growing up on a farm in Kansas. This year felt different as I planned it. Every invitation I sent out, every dish I coordinated, every detail I arranged, it all had a purpose beyond family tradition. I was setting the stage for the most important presentation of my life. "Are you sure you want to host again this year?" Marissa asked, as I ordered the 22-pound turkey from Whole Foods in mid-November. "You've been traveling so much. Maybe we should just go to your parents' place." "No way," I replied, putting extra enthusiasm in my voice. "The kids love having everyone here. Besides, Logan's been such a huge help lately. I want to make sure he knows how much I appreciate everything he's done for our family." I watched her face when I said that. Just a flicker of something. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But she covered it quickly with a smile. "He really has been wonderful with Mason and Lily." "The best uncle they could ask for," I agreed. The week before Thanksgiving, I made my final preparations. Not just the usual menu planning and house cleaning, but the technical setup that would make this dinner truly memorable. I told Marissa I was upgrading our entertainment system as an early Christmas present. I replaced our old 55-inch TV in the dining room with a brand new 75-inch Samsung 4K display, wall-mounted for the perfect viewing angle. I also set up my laptop with a wireless presenter remote and prepared a very special slideshow. 21 months of evidence, edited into a clear chronological presentation with dates, timestamps, and crystal-clear audio. Thanksgiving morning arrived gray and cold, typical Denver November weather. Snow was forecast for the afternoon, but that just made the house feel more cozy as family members started arriving around noon. My parents drove down from Fort Collins. Marissa's sister came with her husband and their twin boys. My cousin Jake brought his teenage daughter Emma, who immediately started entertaining Mason and Lily with magic tricks. Logan showed up right on time, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing his most charming smile. He hugged Marissa, a little too long I noticed, then shook my hand like the devoted brother he'd always pretended to be. "Connor, man, this spread looks incredible," Logan said, surveying the dining room. "You really outdid yourself this year." "Team effort," I replied, meeting his eyes directly. "Couldn't have done it without all the help I've been getting at home." Dinner conversation flowed like it always did. Dad told his Kansas farm stories. Mom fussed over Mason and Lily's plates. Jake's daughter Emma entertained everyone with stories from her high school drama club. Marissa played the perfect hostess, making sure everyone had seconds of everything. Logan charmed the table with jokes and stories about his latest job prospects. I played my part perfectly. The grateful husband, the appreciative brother, the proud father showing off his beautiful family. Inside, I was counting down the minutes until dessert, watching Logan laugh and joke with my parents, knowing they had no idea what he'd been doing in their son's house for the past 21 months, or how he'd been corrupting their grandchildren's understanding of honesty and trust. Before we move on to pie, I said, standing up and raising my wine glass as Marissa brought out her homemade pumpkin cheesecake, I want to make a toast. The room quieted down. This was tradition, my annual Thanksgiving speech about gratitude and family. This year has been challenging in some ways, I began, looking around the table at all the faces I'd grown up with. My work has kept me away from home more than I'd like. But it's also shown me how important it is to know who you can really trust, and how crucial it is to protect our children from harmful influences. I saw Marissa and Logan exchange a quick glance. She was smiling, but there was something nervous in her eyes. I'm grateful for my beautiful children, who deserve to grow up in an environment of honesty and integrity. Mason and Lily grinned at me from their booster seats. I'm grateful for my parents, who taught me that family means telling the truth even when it's difficult. Mom dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. And I'm especially grateful for modern technology, which has helped me stay connected to my family, even when I'm traveling. Speaking of which, I've put together a special video presentation, some memories from the past couple of years that I think really show what's been happening in our home. I pulled out the wireless remote and pointed it toward the new TV. Just some footage from our baby monitor system. You know, those moments when people think no one is watching, but more importantly, moments that show how adult behavior affects innocent children. The first image that appeared on the 75-inch screen was a timestamp, February 21st, 2021, 11:23 p.m. Security camera footage showing Logan's pickup truck pulling into our driveway. Marissa's wine glass slipped from her hand. Logan's face went completely white. The room stayed silent as the video continued. Logan using his key to enter our house, the hallway camera catching him heading toward the master bedroom. Audio of voices, laughter, and then sounds that made my mother gasp, and my father push back from the table. But then I played the part that made it truly damning. Audio from the next morning, Mason's small voice asking, "Uncle Logan, why are you here so early again?" And Logan's response, "I was helping Mommy with some special grown-up work, buddy, but let's keep it our secret, okay? Don't tell Daddy." The room went completely silent. Even the ticking of the grandfather clock seemed to stop. "Connor, turn it off," Marissa whispered, but her voice barely carried across the stunned silence. I let it play for another minute, showing different dates from the past 21 months. March 2021, June 2021, September 2021, February 2022, August 2022, November 2022. Same pattern, same betrayal, all captured in high-definition detail with timestamps that corresponded perfectly to my business travel schedule. But worse than the adultery was the systematic coaching of my children to lie, to keep secrets, to participate in deception that was poisoning their developing moral compass. Finally, I clicked the remote and the screen went black. Logan tried to laugh, but it came out as more of a choked sound. "Come on, Connor, this has to be some kind of mistake, some technical glitch or—" "No mistake, Logan," I said calmly, setting the remote down next to my wine glass. "Just 21 months of documented evidence. Over 50 separate instances of adultery. But more importantly, over a dozen instances of you teaching my children to lie, coaching them to keep secrets, and systematically undermining their understanding of honesty and integrity." I looked directly at my parents, whose faces showed not just shock, but profound disappointment. "You raised us to believe that family means honesty, trust, and protecting children. Logan has violated every one of those principles." Nobody else was saying a word. I looked around the table at the stunned faces of my family. My cousin Jake was staring at his plate like it might provide answers. Emma, his 17-year-old daughter, had her hand over her mouth, eyes wide with shock. My parents looked like they'd aged 10 years in the past 3 minutes. Marissa's sister was gripping her husband's arm so tightly her knuckles were white. "This is a family dinner," Marissa finally managed, her voice shaking. "We can discuss this privately later." "Not here? Not in front of everyone? You mean discuss it privately like you and Logan have been doing for the past 21 months? I asked, maintaining that same calm tone. "In our bedroom, while I was in Phoenix and Seattle And Salt Lake City, working 70-hour weeks to pay for your car, this house, the kids' college funds, while you were both teaching my children that lying and keeping secrets from Daddy is acceptable behavior? Logan stood up abruptly, knocking over his wine glass. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth like blood. Look, Connor, I know how this looks, but I can explain. Actually, you can't, I interrupted, standing up myself. Because there's nothing to explain. It's all documented. February 2021 through November 2022. Over 50 separate instances of adultery and a dozen instances of corrupting my children's moral development. 21 months of you using the key I gave you for emergencies to sneak into my house, sleep with my wife, and turn my children into accomplices to your betrayal. I walked toward the dining room exit, then stopped and turned back to face them. But here's what's interesting, Logan. I'm not angry anymore. I was, for about 10 minutes back in that hotel room in Seattle when I first saw the footage. But then I realized something important. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. You both did me a favor. You showed me exactly who you really are. No more wondering if I could trust the people closest to me. You gave me perfect clarity about what my marriage actually was, what kind of man my brother really is, and most importantly, you gave me everything I need to protect my children from further psychological harm. I looked directly at Marissa, who was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. And you gave me everything I need to make sure my children grow up in a stable, honest environment where adults don't teach them to lie and keep harmful secrets. I walked over to Mason and Lily, who were sitting in their booster seats looking confused by all the adult drama. I kissed the top of each of their heads. Daddy has to go take care of some important business, but I'll see you very soon, okay? Are you coming back tonight, Daddy? Mason asked in his clear 4-year-old voice. I'm going to make sure we have a better place to live, where nobody will ever ask you to keep secrets from me again, I said softly. I grabbed my coat from the hallway closet and headed for the front door. Behind me, voices were starting to rise. Someone was crying. Someone else was asking questions I wouldn't be there to answer. I paused at the door and looked back one final time. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm truly grateful for this moment of clarity and for the chance to protect my children from further harm. The next 72 hours moved like clockwork. Patricia Walsh had everything prepared and ready to file first thing Monday morning. The divorce papers were served to Marissa on Tuesday, along with a temporary restraining order requiring Logan to stay away from our house and our children. The evidence was overwhelming. 21 months of documented infidelity, with timestamps proving ongoing deception and premeditation. But more importantly, clear evidence that both adults had systematically involved the children in deceptive behavior, coaching them to lie and keep secrets that could cause psychological harm. The family court judge reviewed the baby monitor footage, the pattern of behavior involving the children, and Patricia's detailed presentation about parental alienation and psychological damage. This isn't just about adultery, the judge stated during the emergency custody hearing. This is about adults who have demonstrated a willingness to corrupt children's moral development for their own purposes. The evidence shows a clear pattern of involving minor children in deceptive behavior, which constitutes a form of psychological abuse. He awarded me temporary primary custody pending the final divorce proceedings, with Marissa granted only supervised visitation until she completed court-mandated counseling about appropriate boundaries with children. Marissa tried to fight it, of course, hired her own attorney, claimed it was a recent mistake, begged for marriage counseling, but the timeline didn't lie. 21 months of evidence spoke louder than any excuses. Her own voice, captured on audio night after night coaching children to lie, contradicted every claim her lawyer tried to make. Logan's life imploded even faster than Marissa's. Word spread quickly through our extended family about what had happened at Thanksgiving dinner. My parents, who had been letting him live in their basement for over a year, gave him 24 hours to find somewhere else to stay. "We didn't raise you to corrupt children," my father told him. "You're no longer welcome in our home." The rest of the family cut contact completely. Logan had violated the most sacred trust, the protection of children's innocence and moral development. He tried calling me dozens of times over the next few weeks, left voicemails apologizing, making excuses, begging for a chance to explain. I never answered. I'd heard everything I needed to hear on those baby monitor recordings, especially his voice teaching my children to lie. The divorce was finalized in July 2023. I got primary custody of Mason and Lily, with the court citing the psychological harm caused by involving children in deceptive adult behavior. Marissa was granted supervised visitation every other weekend, with the stipulation that she complete ongoing counseling about appropriate parental boundaries. The house, savings accounts, and retirement funds were divided according to Colorado law, but the custody arrangement was what really mattered to me. That was over 2 years ago. Today, Mason is 6 and thriving in first grade at a great school near our new apartment in Cherry Creek. Lily just turned 4 and is in preschool, where her teachers praise her honesty and openness, qualities I've worked hard to restore after the damage done by months of being coached to keep secrets. We have pizza nights on Fridays and pancake breakfasts on Sunday mornings. I've scaled back my travel significantly, taking only local Denver projects that keep me home most nights. Last month, Mason asked me why Uncle Logan doesn't visit anymore. I told him that sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt other people, especially when they ask children to lie or keep harmful secrets. I explained that it's never okay for adults to ask children to hide things from their parents, and that he should always tell me if anyone ever asks him to keep secrets. He seemed to understand in the way 6-year-olds do, and I could see the relief in his eyes. Relief that he no longer had to carry the burden of adult secrets. I never saw Logan again after that Thanksgiving dinner. I heard through family channels that he moved to Phoenix and supposedly found construction work. Marissa still lives in our old house in Littleton. She bought out my half as part of the divorce settlement, but neighbors tell me she's struggling with the mortgage payments on her marketing coordinator salary. She attends her supervised visits religiously and seems to be taking the court-mandated counseling seriously. People sometimes ask if I feel bad about how it all played out, if I regret exposing them in front of the entire family. The answer is no. They exposed themselves with their choices, but more importantly, they were damaging my children's psychological development. I just provided the documentation that protected Mason and Lily from further harm. The real victory isn't their downfall. It's the life I've built with my children. Every morning when I make Mason's lunch and help Lily pick out her clothes, every evening when we read bedtime stories together, every weekend when we explore Denver's parks and museums, I'm reminded of what actually matters. My children are learning that honesty is valued, that secrets between children and parents are dangerous, and that they can trust me with anything. I learned that loyalty isn't inherited, it's earned through actions. Trust isn't a birthright. It's built through consistency and honesty, and sometimes the most effective revenge is simply letting people face the natural consequences of their own choices while you focus on protecting those who truly matter, your children. The baby monitor system that caught them, I still use it in our new place, not to spy on anyone, but because it gives me peace of mind when I'm working late. Mason and Lily are safe, our home is secure, and there are no more harmful secrets lurking in the shadows. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.